there's nothing worse, is there? Waking up to a freezing cold house, especially during a proper Lancashire winter, and you realise the heating's off. Your first thought might be a big, expensive call-out, but hold on. What if the fix is something you can do yourself, safely, in just a few minutes?
We've all been there. You notice that silence where the hum of the boiler should be, and the house just feels like it's getting colder by the minute. It's a real feeling of dread, I know, but honestly, don't panic just yet. You see, a huge number of boiler breakdowns are actually caused by really simple issues. So before you pick up the phone, we're going to walk through 9 simple checks you can do right now. Think of it as your first line of defense to get your heating back on, and maybe even save yourself that call-out fee. All right, let's start with the 5 easiest and most common culprits. The great thing about these is you don't need any tools, and we're not going to be opening up the boiler itself. First up, the thermostat. I know, it sounds almost too obvious, doesn't it? But you would not believe how often this is the problem. Just check. Is the little display on? Is the temperature you've set actually higher than the temperature in the room right now? And here's a big one. If you've got a wireless thermostat, when did you last change the batteries? A quick swap can solve a surprising number of problems. Next, let's make sure the boiler is actually getting power. If its display is completely blank, it's probably an electrical issue. Have a look for the main switch on the wall near the boiler. Has it been knocked off by accident? If that's okay, pop over to your main fuse box and see if any of the switches have tripped. And of course, if you're on a prepayment meter, you know what I'm going to say, make sure you've got credit. Right, here's a brilliant way to figure out if you've got a gas supply problem. If you have a gas hob, try to light one of the rings. If it lights, then you know gas is getting into the house and the fault is likely with your boiler. But if it won't light, then it's probably a wider gas supply issue, and another good reason to check that prepayment meter. Think of your modern boiler a bit like a computer. Sometimes it just needs a good old reboot. Find the reset button on the front. It often has a little flame symbol or a light next to it. Just press it once and see if it fires back up. And this is really crucial, only do it once. If the boiler starts up and then immediately shuts down again, it's telling you there's a genuine fault somewhere. Just pressing reset over and over again isn't going to fix it, and you could actually end up damaging the main circuit board. And that, I'm afraid, turns a small problem into a much more expensive one. Okay, if those first few checks didn't do the trick, don't worry. Now we're going to look a little bit wider at the heating system itself. This means checking the pressure, some of the pipes, and your radiators. Low pressure is an absolute classic reason for a boiler to stop working. It needs to have enough water pressure in the system to circulate, and if it drops too low, it shuts down to protect itself. Find the pressure gauge on the front of the boiler. You're looking for the needle to be in the green zone, usually between 1 and 1.5 bar. If it's dropped below 1, you'll need to top it up using the silver braided pipe underneath, which is called the filling loop. Just open the valve slowly, listen for the water, and watch the gauge climb back into the green. And remember to close both valves firmly when you're done. Now, this one is a really common problem around here, especially when we get a proper cold snap. It's a frozen condensate pipe. This is the white plastic pipe that drains water away from your boiler to the outside. If it freezes solid, the boiler will stop working. You might even hear a gurgling noise. The fix is simple. Find that pipe outside and just pour some warm water over it to thaw the blockage. And I do mean warm, not boiling water, because that can crack the plastic. So what if the boiler sounds like it's running, but the house is still cold? Go and feel your radiators. If they're hot at the bottom but cold at the top, that's just trapped air. You can release that yourself by bleeding them with a radiator key. But if it's the other way around, cold at the bottom but warm at the top, that usually points to a buildup of sludge in the system. And that, unfortunately, is a bigger job that might need a professional system flush. Okay, a final couple of checks here. First, does your boiler have a digital display? Is it flashing a fault code? If so, make a note of it. A quick search online with your boiler's make and model will often tell you exactly what's wrong. And second, this one is for people with a separate hot water tank. If your hot water is working fine but your radiators are stone cold, it could be a stuck zone valve. That's a part that directs the hot water, and if it's jammed, you'll need an engineer to sort it. So we've gone through all the safe things you can try yourself. Now for the most important part of all, knowing when to stop, step away, and call in a professional, because your safety is the #1 priority. It's so important to know where that line is. When should you stop what you're doing and call a gas-safe registered engineer? Right, these are the absolute red flags. If you notice any of these, stop immediately. If you smell gas, call the National Gas Emergency number straight away. If you see water leaking from the actual boiler casing, if you hear loud banging or whistling noises, or, as we said before, if the boiler keeps locking out after a reset. Any of those things happen, Don't touch anything else. It's time to make the call. And that's just the reality of it. Here at Croston Plumbing and Heating, we deal with boiler breakdowns every day across Preston, Chorley, Leyland, and the surrounding areas. And honestly, a lot of the callouts we attend start with one of these simple issues. So, if you've gone through this whole list and you're still sitting in the cold, please don't worry or feel defeated. You've done all the sensible, safe checks you can do. Now is the right time to let a qualified engineer take over and get you warm and comfortable again.
Hopefully, this little guide has helped you out. Maybe you've even managed to fix the problem yourself, which is brilliant. But if not, at least you now know when it's time to call for help. Stay warm, and thanks for watching.